Okay, the third time's a charm. This is Denise from God's Third Acre. This is the third time I've tried this, so hopefully it's working now. Today we're going to be doing some canning. I haven't made a video in a while. We've just been really busy. I have a new business doing transcription, so that's keeping me busy. And then taking care of the garden and taking care of our chickens. So anyway, the garden is going like gangbusters. I've got tons of tomatoes. I've canned, the other day I had a friend that gifted me over 100 ears of corn. I gave a dozen to our neighbor, and I ended up processing 97 ears, so we put 12 in the freezer, or no, put 21 in the freezer, and then I ended up with 32 pints of canned corn. That's enough canned corn probably for 2 years for us. But anyway, I've got tons of tomatoes. I've got jalapenos and poblanos and green peppers. So today we're going to make some salsa. And I'm using this book, the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, which is an awesome book. It's got 400 recipes in it. And I just found it. I'd been looking for it for a while on Amazon, and it was always out of stock. And I was at my Tractor Supply store the other day, and this caught my eye, and I grabbed it. It was the only one there. So I was so happy to get it. But we're going to use a recipe out of here called Zesty Salsa. And it calls for, let me get to the recipe. It calls for 10 cups of chopped cored peeled tomatoes, 5 cups of seeded green bell peppers, 5 cups of chopped onions, 2.5 cups of hot peppers, which we may cut that down a little bit because we don't like the salsa too hot. So let's get started. I've got my tomatoes in the sink washing them. I've got a pan of water on the stove, getting the water boiling so that I can blanch my tomatoes and take the skins off. So I'll bring you along with me as I go. Okay, as you can see, my water is boiling now, so I'm going to start putting in my tomatoes to blanch them. So you don't want to just drop them in, you could get burned. So I'm putting them on a spoon and lowering them into the water. I've got lots of different sizes of tomatoes and 3 different varieties here. So I'm trying to do the bigger ones first. We'll let them sit in the water for about a minute. That's a big one. I know some people say you can, if you score the skins, then the skins will come off easier. I never have scored the skins before, so I'm just going to put them in here like that. Look at the bubbles coming out of that tomato. That's funny. So we're just going to let them sit for about a minute here, and then I'm going to pull them out and put them in this big pan. Let me turn you over here a little bit. So I'll put them in this big pan, let them sit for a little bit, and then peel the skins off. So while they're sitting, Russell is out picking green beans. I noticed I looked out my bathroom window and I can see my my green beans, the pole beans. There, I'll get it. I could see the pole beans from the bathroom, and I could see green beans hanging down. And they are just loaded with blossoms. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of green beans this year. I also have another raised bed that has just regular green beans. I can't remember what type I planted. And then another bed that has dragon tongue beans, which we planted last year and really liked them. So I saved seeds from last year and replanted them this year. And they came up really well, and they're doing really well. We're going to be redoing our raised beds because we made them out of wood, which was fine, except it was plywood, and now the plywood's coming apart. It was old plywood to begin with, but it got us through our first 2 seasons. But we're going to be redoing them with the cement blocks. We've done one already. I'm going to go ahead and start to take these out. Whoops, and I'm making a mess as usual. I never said I was a neat cook. See, that one you can see how the skin is split. Ooh, some of these in the bottom are peeling themselves here. Look at that, the skin's just coming right off. So maybe some of those I needed to leave in just a little bit longer. I'll put that one back. I remember helping my mom when we were canning and blanching tomatoes and taking the skins off. And, a lot of good memories helping my mom canning. I think she'd be proud if she could see me now doing all this. Actually, if she were still around, I think she'd probably be here helping me with it. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and finish taking these out and keep blanching my tomatoes, and I'll bring you back when we get to peeling them. Okay, while I'm waiting for the tomatoes to cool off so I can handle them to get the skins off, I wanted to show you some of my produce from my garden. Now these, the two red and yellow, aren't from my garden. There's some I had left over from the grocery store. But I was really excited. I got some nice sized bell peppers this year. I've never done well at growing bell peppers, so I'm really excited about these. And then I've got some nice poblano peppers. They're a good size. They're not about the width of my palm, maybe a little wider than that. But this one, you won't believe. Look at this thing. There's my butcher knife. In comparison to my butcher knife, it's huge. It's longer. It's the length of my forearm, believe it or not. I bought these. I can't even remember what variety they are. I got them locally from the plants I got locally from a greenhouse between where I live and West Point, Indiana. But these are just tremendous, and they have a really good flavor. If you leave them on, they'll turn red, which is what I like to do. But I saw this one and I thought, well, I'm making salsa. I didn't have very many green peppers. I'm going to need some green peppers, some more peppers to finish out my 5 cups of peppers. So I picked this one. And then here's one that's turned red that we brought in before. And we've eaten several of them. But I want to show you what I use to chop up my vegetables. I use this Vidalia Chop Wizard. I think it's backwards in your picture. Hope you can read it. But it's a Vidalia Chop Wizard. And I got this years and years and years ago at Bed Bath & Beyond. And it has seen better days. One of the little hooks on the side is broken off, and the chopping blades inside are getting a little bent. But it still works, and I still use it. So I'm going to work on that right now and chop up onions and chop up my peppers. And I didn't show you I've got jalapenos from my garden, so I'm going to chop those up as well. And then by then, the tomatoes should be cooled down enough for me to work on them. So I'll bring you back when we're getting ready to mix everything up. Okay, I'm going to bring you back here. I've done all the chopping. So I have 10 cups of tomatoes, 5 cups of bell peppers, 5 cups of onions, and the recipe calls for 2.5 cups of hot peppers, but we don't like ours that spicy. So I did about 1.5 cups or so of the hot peppers. Now I've minced, calls for 3 cloves of garlic. I added a couple cloves because we like garlic. So I've got about 5 cloves of garlic in there. And it calls for 2 tablespoons of finely chopped cilantro. My cilantro went to seed and I don't have any. So I'm using dried cilantro. So I think, I know the dried you use a lot less. I don't mind if it's got a little bit more cilantro in it. So instead of 2 tablespoons, I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of dried cilantro. Hopefully that won't be too much, but you know, you try it and see if it works. And it calls also for a tablespoon of salt. So I'm using my pickling salt, canning salt and pickling salt, and adding a tablespoon of salt. I'm going to mix all that up and put it into my big stainless steel stock pot, and I bring it to a boil over medium-high heat, and then we reduce the heat and boil gently until slightly thickened, about 10 minutes. So bring it up to a boil, reduce the heat, and then let it boil for 10 minutes. Now I have to tell you what I did with my tomatoes because they were really juicy. So I diced them all with my slap chop Vidalia onion chopper, but I used the bigger grid on it for the tomatoes. And there was so much juice, I ran it through my colander to drain it. But I kept the juice. I didn't get rid of the juice because I'll probably end up canning that juice as well. So we'll have some fresh tomato juice. So anyway, I drained it and then put the tomatoes in because I don't want this to be super soupy or anything. Oh, the other thing I have to add is 1 1/4 cups of cider vinegar. So I'll add that in. I'm going to dump it in the pot and bring it up to a boil. Okay, the time has come to jar everything up. My salsa, I wish you could smell it. It smells so good. But it's been simmering for 10 minutes. And I've got my jars in my hot water here because you have to use hot jars. So I'm going to pour the water out, take some of my jars out here. I put more in than I'm probably going to need, but I'm thinking that the juice that I poured off of the tomatoes, I'm going to can as juice once I get it strained and get all the seeds out of it. I'll probably do quart jars for that though. I was going to process it at the same time, but juice has to process for 35 minutes. So I decided just to wait on the juice and do it separately because I'm probably only going to have maybe a quart or two. So who knows what I'll do. The recipe says this will make 6 pints. I've got 9 pint jars ready to go. And my rack fell in the bottom. Let's see if I can get the rack out of here. Oh, that's hot. Okay, hot rack. All right, now let's see if you can see. There we go. All right, you can see. So I'm going to take my ladle and ladle this. It calls for, let me double check the headroom. Okay, I was right. It calls for a 1/2 inch headspace. So I'm pretty sure that's more than a 1/2 inch. I'm going to go ahead and debubble. And I'm going to check my headspace. Right here is 1/2 inch, so I can add a little more to this. That puts me right at 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'll get my lid, which is over here, and get my band. And I almost forgot. I need to wipe down the rim of the jar. So I'm going to get my paper towel over here. You can't see me, obviously. But I get my paper towel and I pour a little white vinegar on it just to add that little extra bit of cleaning power. And I'm going to wipe the rim. And now I'll put my lid and my band finger tight. And I'll put this jar back over here in the canner. Alright, let's do one more jar together. Even though I drained the juice off these tomatoes, it still turned out pretty juicy. A little bit more. Baby bubble. Check my headspace. I can add just a little bit more. That's about perfect. So then you wipe the rim and grab a lid and a band. My lids and bands are washed. I just washed them. That jar is hot. So put the lid on fingertip tight and put it in here. So I'll come back when I've got them all done. Okay, here's our salsa. I've got 8 jars in the pool there. And almost 9. I said, darn, that's not full. We're going to have to eat it. So we're going to put that, let it cool down and put it in the refrigerator to have. But I'm going to get my lid on here. Those bubbles are just from the air releasing from the jars. Get my lid, put the lid on here. I need to put a splash of vinegar too. I usually do that to help keep deposits off of the jars and the pan. Put the lid on, let it go for 15 minutes once it comes up to a boil. And then we'll take the jars out. Okay, our timer's going off. So I'm going to turn that off and turn the heat off on the pan. Take the lid off. And we'll let it sit for 5 minutes and then I'll take the jars out. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. Turn my timer off and I'll grab my jar lifter. And let's start taking these jars out. Now I have a towel to set them on my counter. The pot next here is the juice that I got off of the tomatoes. So I think I'm going to try to process that too. It looks like I might have a couple quarts. That's an 8-quart stock pot. So I may have a couple quarts of juice, or I may just process them in pints. I don't know. I've got a lot of quart jars though, so I really need to use those. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy going back and forth here. Trying to shoot this without putting it on the tripod. Okay, there we go. 8 beautiful pints of salsa. Plus 1 that we're going to eat today. Or this week, I guess. We're not going to eat the whole pint today. But Russell went back outside. I have a feeling he's digging potatoes. I asked him how much work he was trying to make for me today. So we'll see what happens. But I think he's digging potatoes. And we've got about half a bushel basket of green beans to process too. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making this salsa and looking forward to tasting it, see what it tastes like. If you like this video and others like it, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell so you get notified of when my new videos are coming out, which unfortunately are not too frequently, but I'm going to try to do better on that. Until next time, this is Denise from God's Third Acre. God bless.